All right, everyone. Welcome to TK Wanderlust. Today's video is all about how to plan your trip, step by step, in a very easy way that's simple, stress-free, and fun. Because that's the most important part of travel, right? Is fun. So, Kat isn't feeling well today, so I'm going to be doing this one solo. But she is very much looking forward to meeting you guys in the future. The very first step is deciding where you actually want to go, and just as importantly, why. Do you want history like me? Do you want good food like Kat? Do you want nature like we both enjoy? Relaxation? A mix of everything? Kat and I usually start with the vibe that we're craving. For our next trip, the mix of Ireland's history and Portugal's food and scenery fit perfectly with what we were looking for. Some suggestions I have of places that I've been. For history lovers like me, I would highly recommend places like Washington, D.C., New York, and surprisingly enough, Florida. Florida is home to St. Augustine, the oldest town in the United States. Another honorable mention here is Charleston, South Carolina. For foodies like Kat, I would recommend Las Vegas and Chicago. Las Vegas is known for its food scene almost as much as it is for the gambling, but be aware, many restaurants in Vegas are outrageously expensive. For nature lovers like both Kat and myself, I would recommend places like New Mexico, Colorado, South Dakota, Wyoming. All of these places have gorgeous national parks and cave systems that'll scratch that naturalist itch. For relaxation, you really can't do better than Hawaii and, once again, Florida. Personally, I absolutely love the beach, so anywhere that I can lay in the sand and soak up some sun and take a dip in the ocean to cool off, that's top of my list. Once you know the kind of experience that you're looking for, choosing a destination becomes so much easier. Trust me, it does. It really does. Next is figuring out your budget. Now, this does not have to be complicated. Just break it down into a few simple categories: your flights, your hotel, your food, your activities, your transportation, and your souvenirs. Or as me and my mom call it, mad money. I usually start with the flights and hotel, as those are the two most expensive parts of traveling. Once I have those numbers, I go from there. And I usually start with the activities after that. I'll research how much it'll cost to do the activities that I want to do. Though many of them are free, I'm really good at finding like free activities to do. Next is how much transportation is going to cost, which can vary depending on if you're traveling somewhere with a great public transportation system, with like buses and like L trains, places such as, DC, New York, Chicago, places like that. But if you're going somewhere, say, Dallas or Phoenix or, someplace like that, that doesn't necessarily have a good public transport system that can get you wherever you want to go quickly, you're going to be relying on Ubers and Lyfts, which can get pretty pricey. Next is food. I typically allocate about $250 to $300 for this, and that usually does pretty good to cover at least myself for a good week-long trip. So that's a good estimate to save up for your food costs. And finally is mad money. I typically try to save as much as I possibly can after paying for the flights, the hotel, any activities that you purchase tickets for in advance. I save that money for this category. The more mad money that you save, the more souvenirs that you get to bring home with you, which everybody loves. Once I have all these numbers, I add them all up, and at that point, I'll know how much I need to save for my trip, and I have a good skeleton of everything that I'm going to be doing and how much everything is going to cost. I have a very good starting point for a really solid itinerary. Dates matter more than people realize. Prices, crowds, uh, and weather can greatly affect your travel experience, and all of these things can change drastically over the course of the year. Kat and I chose December for Ireland and Portugal because it's festive. Ireland is widely known as one of the Christmas capitals of the world, and for good reason. Dublin, especially, is intricately and beautifully decorated from what I've seen. Oftentimes, it's the destinations are not as crowded. Um, most people are flying home for Christmas, not flying off on a vacation. So yeah, the airports might be, they're going to be packed. The airports are going to be packed. There's going to be a ton of people, but the destinations themselves are not going to have all that many tourists because they're all going to be at home with their family. And speaking of family, my parents, they live in Portugal, so that's part of the reason we're taking this trip is to see them for the holidays. So even though it's technically kind of a vacation, we're doing what I just said and going home for the holidays. At least I am. So if you don't like crowds, I really would not suggest traveling in the summer or in the spring, because those are the two big breaks from from schools and colleges, and that's when families are going to be doing um, their trips is during the summer and the spring. So if you don't like crowds, I would not I wouldn't travel during that time. The airports, they're not going to be as busy as they will be during Christmas time. But the destinations themselves they're going to be just really really popular, especially if you're going to to like the big name places like Mexico or like Europe or Hawaii. A lot of people want to go to those places, especially in the summer and the spring. So if people aren't your thing, I would wait to go to those places until the winter or the fall. Um, and then not only that, um, going to those places in the summer and in the spring, it's going to be the flights are probably going to be a little bit more expensive just because there's such a high demand, and it's going to be really hard to find a hotel, like really really hard. Um, just again because there's going to be so many people, so it all comes back to that. This step is going to be a whole episode on its own here in a couple of weeks, but here's the short version. Use multiple search engines when you're researching flights. Me personally, I love Expedia. I have the app on my phone and I've had it downloaded on my phone for years now. It's never gone off just because I'm using it so much to research flights, and most of the flights I don't end up taking just because of money, but it's fun to just daydream, you know. Um, but anyway, Expedia. That's the one that I've always used for my booking. When I went to Chicago, when I went to Phoenix, when I went to Dallas, my hotels and my flights, they were all booked through Expedia because they give you very good deals. Especially if you bundle your hotel and your flight together, because you can do that on Expedia, and that gives you a really good deal. And another tip for researching your flights, be flexible with your dates. You don't have to have exact dates of when you want to leave and when you want to come back in mind. You can say, for example, hey, I want to go to New England and I want to do some leaf peeping, you can, once you have that, general time frame of when you want to go, like in this example, the fall, you can look at flights in, September and October and go from there. And also, don't shy away from overnight flights. A lot of people are really scared of overnight flights, but they're really not anything to be afraid of. They're not that bad. Everyone is super quiet and super respectful on the plane because they're all sleeping just like you will be. So it's nothing to be afraid of, and overnight flights save you a ton of money. So when we're looking for our hotels, we typically we focus on location first. I know for both me and Kat, um, safety when traveling, and well, not just when traveling, but safety in every aspect of our life is top priority. So, like with flights, you want to use multiple search engines, like hotels.com, booking.com, Expedia, because you might find a better deal somewhere else than you did at, you know, another place. And then another thing that you want to ask yourself, you want to look at all the things that you want to do, and you want to ask yourself, is it easily, can I easily walk to these things that I want to do? Can I, um, is the area safe? Is it close to public transportation? I can tell you from personal experience, staying in a hotel, that's far away from everything that you want to do, that's dirty, and that you don't feel safe in, it ruins your whole trip. That's what ruined my trip when I went to Phoenix, and that's going to be a whole horror story in a later episode. So I won't go into that in detail yet, but I can tell you from personal experience, staying in a place like that, it ruins the whole trip. And I was in that situation because I didn't research the hotel that I booked, and I paid for it. So again, this step will be a whole episode of its own here in the coming weeks. So I'll keep this one concise. Keep your itinerary loose. You don't need every minute planned. I recommend having one must do, and then one must do per day. And then, for example, some of our must do's when we go to Ireland and Portugal next month is Kilmainham Jail, a tour to the countryside, to Wicklow and to the Powerscourt waterfalls and Glendala, the Guinness Storehouse and Dublin Castle. Those are our big things that we want to do. So we're gonna be there for about 4 days, about 4 days. So that's one per day. And then you can plan everything else around that big anchor, I like to call it, the anchor activity. So after your big must do, and I usually try to knock that out, the first thing after breakfast. I usually do like a medium-sized activity after that, say like a museum or a botanic garden, something that's, chill and low energy, and that's, it's not going to be as physically taxing as your main activity might be. And then you have the rest of the day open for exploring and spontaneity, and ultimately this leaves room for you to spend time at a place that you really enjoy, or to just take your time getting used to or getting to your next stop. So before you travel anywhere, double check your important documents. You need to make sure that you have your passport, that it's valid. If you're going out of country, you need to have any visa that you may require, any entry forms, any vaccinations that you need to have if you're going to, I know the one place off the top of my head that I can think of that requires a ton of vaccinations to visit is countries in Africa. So you got to make sure that all of those documents, that you have them with you and that they're up to date. You know, you don't want any surprises at the airport. Trust me, I've been there. You don't want that. So another tip from someone who also made this mistake: keep all of your tickets and, like, you know, your boarding passes, your activity tickets, your um, you know, hotel confirmation, and, you know, any, you know, sort of document like that. Keep a digital version and a physical version. Keep them both with you. That way, in case you lose one, you have the other one. Because you don't want to, you know, say get to your hotel and they'll be like, oh, we don't have you here. Do you have your confirmation? And you don't have it. You can't find it. You do not want to be in that situation, because then you'll be scrambling trying to find another place to stay, and that is not fun. And that's it. That's all the tips and the method that Kat and I use when we are planning our trips. So if you have your own travel tips, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to see them. And be sure to come back for our next episode, how to create the perfect travel itinerary. Thanks for being here, and welcome to TK Wanderlust. Adventure starts here. Overnight flights save you a ton of money. And I have a cat. Just so you guys know, this whole time I've been filming, my cat has been on the desk right in front of me.